Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're joining for the first time, hello there. My name is Lois and I'm a sewing tutor here on YouTube. And today I'm going to be teaching you how I made this beautiful gown. Let's go. So to start with, I have this Ankara fabric in 6 yards, and then you also need a lining, your ruler, tape rule, pins and chalk, and then your pattern paper, also your wording to pad the bustier. So the first thing I want to do is to take all my horizontal measurements, that is my bust point, my under bust and the waistline measurement. My bust point is about 11 inches from my shoulder, and my under bust is 14 inches from my shoulder also, and then the waistline is 17 inches. So I'm just going to label all of the lines: bust point, the under bust and the waistline. So once that is done, I'm moving on to my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 16 inches divided by 2 would give me 8. Then I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slant and then connect it just like this. Then from that shoulder slant, I'm going to go down by 8 inches for my armhole depth. I'm going to connect it to the shoulder slant like this. Now on my horizontal measurement, I'm going to be taking my bust span measurement divided by 2. That is 8 inches divided by 2. It gives me 4 inches. And I'm going to place it on the under bust line and on the waistline like this. Then connect the lines together. Now on the bust point line, I'm going to be adding half inch to that 4 inches. That will give me 4.5 inches and connect it together. So that is done, and this is what it looks like. Now to do my under bust tightening, I'm going to be taking 1.5 inches towards the armhole side, and I'm just going to mark that there and mark half an inch towards the front side. That will give me 2 inches in total. So I'm going to take that 1.5 inches all the way to the under bust and then connect the points like this. And once that is done, we're going to make a curve to meet the bust point line just like this. You can use your French curve to do this. So make a nice curve. Now remember we took about 2 inches for the under bust tightening. So we're going to place that same 2 inches on our armhole depth line. So you're going to make a new line using 2 inches as the width. So connect the points together. Once that is done, you're going to divide the value of your armhole depth. Mine is 8 inches. Divide it in 2 and that will give me 4 inches. So mark that 4 inches there, and on the second line 4 inches. Now we're going to connect that line to the first armhole line just like this. So watch closely. Connect it like this. That's the first one. And then the one that is towards the bust point, and then the other parts where we made a curve, you're going to connect it to the second line just like this. So connect it nicely, make it very curvy. So that is done, and the next thing you want to do is to extend that first line to the half inch that we left. So just extend it like this, and we are almost done with drafting this princess dart bustier. But before we finish off, I'm going to be taking my bust measurements divided by 4. That is 38 divided by 4. It gives me 9.5 inches. And I'm going to place that 2 inches we took out. I'm going to place it in and then place extra 2.5 inches for seam allowance. And on my waistline, I'm taking 32 divided by 4. Give me about 8 inches. Take the same 2 inches and then add extra 2.5 inches for seam allowance. Now I'm just going to extend my armhole depth line like this. After that, I'm just going to connect all the points together So here I'm just going to make my armhole curve. So curve it and connect it to the second armhole just like this. And now I'm just going to make a slight curve on the first armhole line just like this, just slightly, going in by half an inch. Now it's time to take the measurements for the neckline, and for my neckline width I'm using 3.5 inches as the width, and for the depth I'm using about 3 inches. So this is just the neckline for now. Just for now, we're going to cut the asymmetric neckline later on, but just do this for now. So connect the points together and make a curve like this. We are finally done with drafting this Princess That Bustier pattern, and it's time to cut out everything. And that is all for the front pattern of the outfit. So this is how your own pattern should look like once you're done. So we are going to be cutting the first pattern on fold, excuse the times 2, and then the other part times 2 of it. So that is it. Now for the back pattern, I've already put down my lines, the armhole line, the armhole slant, the bust point, the underbust, and the waistline, and also my zip allowance. So for my armhole depth, I'm going to be taking half of it, that is 8 inches divided by 2. That will give me 4. And then take my bust span measurement, 8 divided by 2 also. That will give me 4. And then I'm going to be adding about half an inch on the bust point line and connect it together like this. So we're going to connect it to that place we marked the half of my armhole depth line, and on that point I'm going to be adding about half an inch because by the time we join it is going to be lesser. So I'm just going to add about half an inch. That is going to be my second line, and I'm just going to extend it this way. It's better we have more than less. So now I'm going to be putting in my bust measurement and my waistline measurements, the same thing we did for the front pattern, but this one I'm not going to be adding any 2 inches allowance because we did not add it on the waistline just like the front one. So just put in the measurements and add about 2.5 inches for allowance. So after connecting the point, I'm just going to make my armhole curve just like this and connect it to that line we extended. And then here I'm going to be going in by half an inch just like we did for the front pattern. Now for the neckline measurements, I'm going to be using the same width I used for the front one, which is 3.5 inches, and for the depth I'm going to be using about 2 inches. This is not going to be my real neckline for the back because we are going to cut the asymmetrical shape later on for the back also. So connect the points and then draw a curve. Now on the waistline, I'm going to be going in by about half an inch towards the zip allowance. I'm doing this to eliminate bulge that's usually at the zip allowance. So you're just going to connect it just like this, make a slant like this. And that is all for the back pattern of this outfit. Now I proceed to cut out all of the patterns. So this is what it should look like once you're done. Now to cut out the skirt pattern for this outfit, I've taken my full length measurement, which is 47 inches from my shoulder. And as you can see, I've taken my zip allowance. I'm using about 1.5 inches for the zip allowance. So we're going to cut out the full length measurements. And once that is done, I'm going to be going down by about 8.5 inches for my hip point line. So I'm going to mark that and connect the points together. Now I'm going to be taking my waist measurement divided by 4, as is 32 inches divided by 4 give me 8 inches. Then add about 1 inch for my dart allowance and then extra 2 inches for allowance. And on the hip line, I'm taking 11 inches, that is 44 divided by 4 will give me 11, and extra 2 inches for allowance. And on the hem part, I'm also going to take that 11 inches but add extra 1 inch because I want a pencil shape on the skirt. So I'm just going to connect all of those points together. So here I'm just going to make a nice curve to eliminate that sharp edge. So do it nicely and then cut out the pattern. So here I'm just trying to cross check my full length measurement, and I'm taking my shoulder to waist measurement, which is 17 inches, and when we take that out you can see we have 47 inches for the full length measurement. So to cut out the front pattern of this skirt, I'm just going to fold in the zip allowance just like this. So fold in the zip allowance and then place the pattern on the fabric and cut out the front pattern. Now it's time to cut on the fabric, and here I have placed the middle pattern for the front pattern on the fabric, and you can see it is on fold. So you're going to pin the pattern to the fabric just like this and then cut it out, leaving half an inch for seam allowance. So do it for all of the patterns. I've cut my skirt pattern, and as you can see I made the lining shorter than the main fabric. I did the same for the back. The lining is shorter than the main fabric, so this is how yours should be like. So these are the back patterns, and I've also cut the lining for all of my patterns, the back and the front patterns. So to cut out my sleeve pattern, I have this piece of fabric and I'm going to be folding it in two like this. And for the length, I'm using about 12 inches plus extra 2 inches for allowance. So that is 14 inches in total. I'm going to mark 14 inches all the way and connect the points together. So now I'm going to be taking my round sleeve measurements, and my round sleeve is 13 inches divided by 2 will give me 6.5 inches, and I'm going to add extra 2 inches, that is 8.5. Now I've gone down by 5 inches for the sleeve cap measurement, and I'm just going to connect it to the top like this in a nice curve. So on the down part, I'll be taking about 15 inches, just like this. We're going to be using an elastic band on the down part. That is why it's bigger. So I'm just going to connect it this way, giving it the shape. Now that is it for the sleeve pattern, and now I'm just going to cut it out. So you're going to fold it this way to make a casing for the elastic band. And now I'm just going to make a notch for the midpoint. Now it's time to join our patterns together, and as you can see, I've ironed my wording to the front pattern. So to join it, you're going to place it from the down part like this and pin it together. So pin it all the way to the armhole. So after pinning it, you're going to do the same for the other side and then stitch it together. And after stitching, this is what it should look like. So because it has curves, we're going to clip it just like this. Clip it around the curved areas and then do the same for the other side. And now it's time to iron the seams. So I have this makeshift tailor's ham, and I'm going to place it underneath like this. Then open up the seams and press the middle just like this. Press it nicely. Do the same for the other side, and once that is done, you can see our bustier is standing nicely, standing on business. Now I'm just going to trim off the armhole, and I'm just going to cut a new armhole. So we're taking ½ inch from the shoulder, and then I'm going to go in by 1 inch and then just trim off the excess like this. Once that is done, it is time to cut out the asymmetrical neckline. And on the main style, you can see her own is going from right to left, but I want mine to go from left to right. You can choose to do yours anyhow. So now I'm going to be extending the depth of the neckline, and I'm going to go down by about 6 inches. So just going to do that for the other side also. Mark 6 inches and then connect the lines like this. Then I'm just going to extend it all the way like this and do the same for the other side. Extend it like this. So once that is done, I'm just making sure we have about 7 inches in total for the width of the neckline. Remember, I'm making my own neckline from left to right. So on the left hand side, I'm going in by 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark that 1.5 inches all the way down and connect the points together. So now I'm just going to make a curve like this and connect it to that 1.5 inches that we marked, that line. So connect it together like this. And once you're done with that, you're going to cut it out. And after cutting, this is what it should look like. Now I have joined my lining together, the pattern for my lining, and now I'm just going to place it on top. But before then, we're going to take the midpoint for the lining and then the midpoint for the main fabric. So you're going to cut a notch, make a notch of it, and now just going to place the lining on top like this, the right side to the right side. Make sure the notches align and then pin it together. Once that is done, flip it over, and now you're going to stitch the neckline round together with the lining. So do that, and once that is done, you're going to trim off the excess. Now the neckline has curves and edges, so you're just going to clip it. So clip around the curved areas, and once that is done, you're going to stitch the sides and then flip it over, and this is what the front pattern should look like. You can see how nice it looks already. We are done with the front pattern, and now it's time to move to the back pattern. And as you can see, I have joined it together and ironed the seams. And what we want to do first is to mark out the zip allowance. I use about 1.5 inches for my zip allowance, so I'm just marking out 1.5 inches all the way down, and then made a notch on the zip allowance just like this. So we're going to place the notch together, make sure the notch aligns well, and then pin it down. So pin it together. Now place the front pattern on it like this, facing the right side to the right side, and then make sure the midpoint is on the zip allowance notch that we left. So you pin that together also, and then pin the shoulders. Here I'm extending the depth of the neckline at the back, and I'm using 3 inches as the depth. So I'm just going to mark that 3 inches and connect the points together. So now extend that line and then make a curve just like this. I want the curve to be like a check mark, so just watch closely how I'm doing mine. Please note, it's not necessary to make yours exactly like mine. You can make it another shape, but let it be asymmetrical just like the front one. So once that is done, you're just going to cut it out, leaving about half an inch seam allowance. So just cut that out. And once that is done, you're going to cut out the new patterns on the lining also. Just cut that out. And once that is done, join it together, and this is how yours should look like. See how nice it's coming already. Now place the front pattern on top and then join the shoulders together. You can see it rhymes nicely because we left about half an inch for seam allowance. So join the shoulder, and when you've joined the shoulder, make sure the notch is aligning to the zip allowance, then pin it together. So here I'm just going to take my bust measurements divided by 4, and then my waistline measurements divided by 4, and then mark the value that I get there. Now after marking that, I'm going to leave about 3 inches. I'm not going to stitch it all the way. So this is what yours should look like after stitching. Now I'm going to trim off the armhole, and this is what it looks like when it's flipped to the front. Looks nice, right? So now it's time to join the skirt pattern, and to do that I'll be joining the lining first. And as you can see, I have joined it already on the hem part. So once you do that, you're going to make sure the lining aligns with the top just like this, and then stitch all the sides round. So once that is done, this is how it should look like. See how nice it looks, and then it's pressed well. Make sure yours is pressed as well. So do the same for the other patterns, and we are done. And as you can see, I have joined the back patterns together. This is the front pattern, and as you can see, it is pressed nicely as well. So make sure yours is pressed nicely too. So for the back pattern, I left about 8.5 inches for my zip allowance. That is where my zip would be, and then I left about 8 inches for where my slits would be. So now it's time to make the darts, and for the front dart I have about 7 inches, and for the back dart we have about 4.875 inches. So take note of that. Now place that 4.875 inches on the back pattern like this, and then mark it. Flip it and do the same for the other side. And now make a notch on that point that we marked. So now from that notch, I'm going to be going down by 5 inches. That is going to be the depth of the dart, and then connect it together like this. And now you're just going to take half an inch on that side, and then connect it also. So now make sure it's up to 5 inches as well. And now you're just going to fold it this way. We're going to be stitching about half an inch for the dart, so just mark half an inch like this and connect it this way in a slant. So this is how the shape of your dart should look like by the time you stitch it together. So just do the other side, mark it in a slant as well. And now you're going to stitch it. And once that is done, this is what it should look like. And when you measure it, you can see it gives that 4.875 inches. Now for the front dart, remember it's 7 inches we measured. So half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. So I've made a notch on that 3.5 inches, and now I am extending the line. So I'm going to be taking half an inch on each side, just like we did for the back dart. So do exactly for the front dart. I am done stitching the front and the back darts, and this is how it looks like. Looks nicely done. So now it's time to attach it to the front pattern, and to do that I'm going to be placing the front pattern notch to notch just like this. That's the midpoint, and then the dart should align. If yours does not align, you have to do it properly again. So pin it together, the dart to the dart, and then pin it all the way to the remaining part. Do the same for the back dart. Pin the dart to the dart and make sure it aligns as well. And as you can see, mine aligns, so make sure yours does too. So stitch everything together, and once that is done, this is what it should look like. I'm also gone ahead to attach my zipper, and as you can see, the darts align well. Clip it to the back, and now it's time to take my hip measurements. And to do that, I'll be taking 8.5 inches from the waistline and then take my hip measurements there. So I'll do the same for the other side and then stitch it together. After stitching, this is what it looks like. Our dress is almost ready. So for the slits, we're just going to iron it nicely. So now it is time to attach the drape, and to do that, I'm going to be coming down by about 2 inches from the waistline. So I'm just going to mark that there. And from that 2 inches, I'll go down by about 9.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark that and then open it up. Now we've joined it together already, so you're just going to open up the seams. So I have this piece of fabric in about 22 inches in length and then 46 inches in width. So yeah, 46 inches. Now I'm just going to fold the edges. And once that is done, you're just going to place it this way inside. So just place it nicely and then pleat it. We're going to stitch it and close off the seam that we opened. I flipped it over to the back and I'm just going to mark the same 2 inches from the waist and 9.5 inches down, and you can see it's open there. So now we're going to place that fabric inside. Make sure the right side is facing the right side inside. So just put it in. So now you're just going to place it like this and then pin it together. Once you've pinned it, you just want to make small pleats. Make small pleats and top stitch it first before you close off that seam that we opened. So just do that, and once it is done, this is what it should look like. You can see I've closed off the seam nicely. The next thing you want to do is to make pleats like this also. I want it to have a slant shape, so that part is going to be much higher. So just watch closely. Now for beginners, it would be much better if you just make the pleats and then top stitch it first before joining it or pinning it to the dress and top stitching. So you just have to top stitch the pleats before top stitching it on the dress. Once you've top stitched the pleats, you just open up the dress like this and then top stitch it so you won't join the back piece together. And once that is done, this is what it should look like. I've also pressed the pleats and this is what mine looks like, so yours should look like this as well. It's time to move to attaching our sleeve, and I'm going to be taking the measurement of my armhole, and what I have there is about 9 inches, so keep that in mind. I have folded the hem part of the sleeve for the elastic casing, And now I'm just going to fold it into like this and measure that 9 inches for the armhole and mark it. So I'm just going to mark it all the way down like this. But before I stitch them together, I'm going to be putting in my elastic at the hem part, and I'm using 11 inches for my elastic. So I'm just going to fix that all the way around. And once that is done, you're going to stitch that line together. Do the same for the other part of the sleeve, and this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to be attaching it to the dress, and to do that we're going to be placing the joining to the side of the dress like this, and then pin it together, and then place the midpoint to where we join the shoulder of the dress and pin it together as well, and then sew it round. Do the same for the other side and sew all of them round. So do the same for the other side, and our dress is ready. I had a lot of fun making this outfit, from the fabric choice to the asymmetrical neckline to the drapes, and as you can see, I am happy with the outcome. I would love to see your own recreation, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, share it to your friends who may find it helpful. Until my next video, bye.